That's what I'd like to see with the moon and Mars is continuously occupied scientific outpost stations doing really good research and really good work, doing the sort of things that rovers just can't do.
But to talk a little bit more about that, which is sort of what we're working on, what sort of some interesting updates are in the realm of space beyond just low Earth orbit as we get to the moon and Mars and the outer planets of the solar system, and then even beyond to other star systems and planets around other star systems. Do you want to talk about sort of the things that are going on in that realm of space technology?
Yes. So there are contingent on, like we discussed earlier.
Yes. All with a
things.
Yes, all with a contingency.
There are some very interesting things in the pipeline. Some of them are already on their way. They've already been launched. But two of the missions I'm very excited about, big flagship NASA ones, are Europa Clipper, which is not going to orbit Europa. It's going to actually orbit Jupiter. Due to the orbital mechanics, it would be very difficult to orbit Europa itself, but it's going to make a large number of very close flybys and get some fantastic information on Europa. The other mission that I am really excited for is called Dragonfly, and I mentioned that earlier, and that's going to the moon of Saturn, Titan, which it's a very small moon, or sorry, it's a very large moon, but it has very low gravity compared to Earth, but it has an incredibly thick atmosphere, which means that you can build a helicopter, because the helicopter weighs very little, but there's lots of atmosphere for the propellers to latch onto, that can do a lot. So they are sending a radiothermal isotope powered helicopter to a moon of Saturn before too long, and that helicopter is going to hop around and take pictures of a body in our solar system that we know very little about. There's only been one mission to the surface of Titan. That was around 2004. It was part of the Cassini mission, and the probe detached from Cassini. It was called Huygens and landed on the surface of Titan. But there's lakes of liquid natural
methane.
gas.
It's methane,
there.
if I remember. That's the big.
Liquid methane.
That's the big one on Titan. Yeah.
Everywhere. It's just. It's one of those things where I'm really hoping it's going to be one of those alien worlds that no sci-fi author or movie or concept has ever touched upon. It was the same way that Pluto and some of the objects we've observed past Pluto's orbit have just been nothing was as expected. I'm very excited for those missions. I'm excited for the Artemis program as well, going back to the moon for the first time in a very, very long time. And the impetus to go back seems to really reappear sadly every couple of months. We lose another Apollo astronaut. Just 3 or 4 days ago, we lost Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, the only person to fly to the moon twice but never land. He flew on Apollo 8, the first mission to fly around the moon, and then on Apollo 13. One of, I think, the greatest astronauts in world history. He's up there with Michael Collins and John Young as personal favorites who not everyone talks about. Going back to the moon, that's part of NASA's plan. Now, we don't really have an idea of how the lander's going to go just yet. That the engineering work is far from done on that, but we have a rocket that can send an Orion capsule around the moon. It did it without any people on board a couple of years ago, and hopefully this year or early next year, it's going to send people to fly around the moon for the first time since the early 1970s again, which is going to be really, really exciting. And I see their provided the political will is there, a long-term presence being set up on the moon, the same way NASA set up a long-term presence in low Earth orbit with the International Space Station. Before that, people went up to orbit and then came back down in pretty short order, with a few exceptions on Mir and Skylab and Salyut. But the ISS has been occupied since 2000.
I was going to say, I'm trying to remember the timeline. Yeah. Now, it wasn't fully finished. It was fully finished around, was it like 2008, 10?
Around 2011 was
11.
when it
Okay.
was like official,
Yeah.
because that's when the space
It
shuttle
was
was
done.
retired, but it was essentially in its current form around like 2007, 2008,
Yeah.
close to
Yeah.
being finished. But it has had people on board since 2000
Just
continuously.
wow.
There hasn't been a day since then that no one has been on board. And every day we're setting a new record for the longest time that people have continuously been in space. So I'd like to see that on the moon. I hope that's what we decide to do with the moon. And then, of course, the next big thing is Mars. Some people see the moon as a distraction for Mars. Some people see Mars as just completely impractical. I'm one of those people who I think that Mars is doable. I think it'll be expensive. I think it's going to take a long time. And it's going to require coordination and cooperation with NASA, commercial partners, international partners as well. And we need to be realistic about what a Mars mission can be and what we can do on Mars. It's not going to be we're building a city on Mars. It's the way that I view the moon and Mars is the same way that I view the South Pole in Antarctica, and that is we're not colonizing Antarctica. It's completely dependent on support from the six other continents. It's completely inhospitable. There are no cities there, no sufficient self sufficiency whatsoever, but it's a robust, very productive scientific outpost, and we do support it year year round. We have people at the South Pole continuously, and that's what I'd like to see with the Moon and Mars is continuously occupied scientific outpost stations doing really good research and really good work, doing the sort of things that rovers just can't do. The whole boots on the ground phase or phrase, and focusing on what can we learn from there rather than these distracting conversations about like which billionaire wants to name a city after themselves that they're going to build up there. And if you look at the Starship and New Glenn and the capabilities that they offer, it's not unrealistic to see them being used to lay the groundwork for a presence on these two bodies. And once we've learned how to continuously operate scientific outposts, on the moon and then on Mars, which is a huge leap, just with communication, you can't talk in real time. Who knows what comes next? As for going back to like scientific missions in terms of the other planets and stuff like that, is one thing that's really great about commercial spaceflight is that now you don't need the full force of NASA's resources to send probes and do scientific missions on other bodies. We already see commercial companies sending scientific missions to the moon, and right now they're kind of doing it themselves to demonstrate that they can, and then in the future it's going to be universities and governments hiring them to perform scientific missions on there. There'll probably be some prospectors hiring them to go look for resources, and they'll have what prospectors have happened to them, as we saw in California and Alaska. No one's going to really get rich except for the people selling the pickaxes, but someone might find something. It's worth taking a look. I'd like to see those commercial assets be used to send more decentralized missions to Mars, more cheap, expendable platforms that if something goes wrong, it's no big deal. Four or five others were launched at the same time. I'd really like to see a focus on Venus as well. Venus is not too far away. We can get there. We know very little about it. It's an absolutely hellish landscape, and I use that word in the
In the literal sense of the
literal
word.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so hot that the mountains are melting under their own weight, and metal doesn't survive there, and the atmosphere made out of acid. But I'd like to see some work put into making probes that can last in the atmosphere and on the surface of Venus for more than just a few minutes, because that's the longest any spacecraft that has re-entered or entered into the atmosphere there has lasted. It's been minutes. It's just, yeah, we don't really, we have like maybe one or two really low quality pictures that were taken by probes sent by the Soviet Union in the
I
70s.
was going to say, I
Russia,
thought it was a Soviet probe
yep.
in like, it's been a few decades, yeah, that we've done
Yeah,
that
it's
with
been a very
humans.
long
Yeah.
time, and Russia has talked about going back there, but the general rule is anything that Russia has said about their notions in space over the past 10 years means that it's never going to
It's
happen.
never going to, yeah.
It's their space program's broke. It comes with all the baggage that comes with any major operation conducted by the Russian government.
Yeah,
Not
no,
to
it's
get
it's it's a
political,
bit of a
but
hot,
it's
yeah, it's a bit of a hot mess.
it's yeah, not to get political, but it's true, it's real. The but yeah, like, maybe send some stuff to Mercury. Mercury's one of those planets that doesn't get a lot of attention because it's relatively inert, or so we thought. The more we observe it, the more interesting things we find.
Oh,
The same with any
okay.
planet.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I was just under the impression it's sort of you put it in the same category as it's a bigger version of the moon. It's a rock, and it's just kind
Yeah,
of there.
but then there's Jupiter's got all these moons.
Yes. Yeah, all the Europa stuff
Saturn.
too. All
Yeah,
the
and then
potential liquid ocean with Europa and yeah.
yeah, and then there's never been an orbiter for any of the bodies beyond Saturn. So Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, all of those. No, they've had flybys, which means that every picture you've ever seen of those planets was taken over the course of a couple of minutes as a spacecraft zipped past it, never to return. And I'd like to see some of the resources that we have and the lower cost of spaceflight and some of the new technologies to get probes to these planets faster, because it's going to take 12 years to get to them or something crazy like that. Just in transit time to get there for some of these planets and bodies in the outer solar system. Nuclear thermal propulsion is something that's kind of interesting that could speed that up as well. But yeah, they're sitting out there, and we haven't really studied them in that much depth. And there's only so much you can find. You can find out just from telescopes here on Earth. Now, the amount that we have found out has been absolutely massive. I am consistently thrilled and impressed with the amount of information about bodies in our solar system and beyond that we can get from Earth, but you can always get more from all locations.
I'm just curious.